as I'm opening up with something, I'm going to launch a quick little poll. So if you don't mind going ahead and taking that while I'm talking, that would be great. So let me go ahead and launch that for you. It's two questions. The first question is, where do most of your education topics come from? We are asking you to select any of the ones that for that one. The other one is, how often does your chapter try new education formats or topics? And we are asking you just to select the most popular one within your chapter for that and within your role. So as you guys are filling that out, one thing I also just want to start off this conversation with is that we know our chapters run their education very differently. Some chapters have multiple committees around education that are divided up based on the needs of the chapter. So sometimes we see it by manager or by membership type, such as manager, homeowner, business partner. Some chapters divide up education committees based on regularly scheduled lunches or breakfast or evening events. Some have a specialty one for their special workshops or conferences. Some people divide their education based on area or region. So we have some chapters that might be certain counties have an education committee. Some might have a downtown education versus suburb education. We also see that some committees are divided by years within the industry. So, for example, a young professional, or on the flip side, PCAM style education. So, none of that's the right way or wrong way. Some chapters, again, you just have one education committee that kind of overlaps all of those different areas. At the end of the day, it's really based on what works best for you, for your chapter culture, your needs that you have. But I wanted to share that so that if someone references something today that, this is they're part of their manager education, you're not confused that you're on the wrong call if you're part of the homeowner one, for example. So just wanted to clarify that chapters do it this a little differently. And the focus today is really around that education aspect, not about the specific event that that education might be taking place at. So thank you all for taking the survey. It looks like the most popular is between committee brainstorming and industry trends and updates, or legislative trends and updates. So thank you for sharing that. One thing just to start the conversation going is, are any of your chapters providing an education that consistently resonates with your members? And what would that education be? So I know the most popular is probably legislative updates. That's usually one of the most popular ones that I hear from our members, that, no matter what, if there's a legislative update, that's, the most popular. People are very engaged. So I will ask, outside of legislative updates, are there any topics or themes that you present that you've really found has been beneficial? Valerie, I see you came off mute.
One hot topic right now is AI, of course. So we did a seminar on it last year, and we've got two that we're doing this year.
Great. And can I ask, because again, AI is a very big topic. There's AI that helps you do your job more efficiently, for example. And then there's that generative AI that is actually developing things. Those are more of those customer service style AI. So, for example, Amazon, when you're talking to their chat box, that's an AI that you're interacting with and having that conversation with. So, has there been a focus on an efficiency side versus that generative side, or is it just overall getting comfortable with AI?
I think mostly it's efficiency. So we're really trying to focus on managers and board members and what they can do, how they can use AI to make their jobs easier. Even as far as helping develop resolutions, and we know, and it's always got the caveat that you still have to have your association's attorney look at all of that. We last November, we even talked about, we had a guy from Microsoft, and he was even showing how it could help with inspections, how managers could actually go around, take pictures, and it would help with their inspections by even I mean, it really depends on how much of a deep dive they want to do. If they, wanted to get a program and download their documents, take a picture, it can literally tell you if there's a violation in the picture from the documents that you downloaded. So, or do you just want help writing emails and writing letters to owners? We're kind of doing as much as we can. We always have an attorney on the with the topic also. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I know a lot of chapters do that. It's more panel than single speakers.
right.
So I think that's always great to make sure that you've got that protection from that point of view as well. Um, in terms of AI, if you want to drop in the chat, if your chapter's doing that, I've seen that theme, and a lot of what I have seen as trends is, that very basic introduction to AI. I have seen some go deeper, but realistically, if you haven't done something yet with your chapter, I wouldn't go too deep too fast. Maybe start, here's a level one, and then that secondary one or deeper dive after that, just for comfortability levels. I know I was at a trade show this past week and I referenced AI, and the person's eyes got big and they were like, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And it was talking, and it's just, oh, I've heard so many bad things about them taking stuff from me. And so getting over that original hump with people, I think, is a big first step of getting comfortable of what the conversation is about, not just being scared. So that's great. Any other topics or themes? Brandy, go ahead.
So since last year, we've went back to basics in Idaho. We have newer managers that have never been HOA managers before. The market is way different here. So we find ourselves um, training property managers into HOA managers, and it is hard. So we are going back to the basics in our events. We have six a year, and it's budget, irrigation season, and anything, the real hot topic, of course, for legislation, we do updates of those, but we do, and we have one coming up next month. Every year we do Ask an Attorney. And so we get a panel of attorneys because we have, a couple attorneys on our board and we have a couple attorneys in our LAC. And they do a panel of about four attorneys and they do Ask an Attorney on specific topics. And we find that to be, hey man, it's free legal advice. But
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
for the most part, we're going back to basics. Board books, agendas, what are HOAs? That's what we're doing here in Idaho.
Yeah, and I know for others that might be great because we are seeing newer managers come into the industry, and how do you get them up to speed and utilizing the knowledge of the people who have been here, those PCAMs that have been around for years and have that expertise, and want to share it. So I think that's great. Michael, go ahead.
So Kelly and everyone, it's less topic driven and more we're really stressing interactivity. So, we are really trying to get our speakers to focus less on delivering a PowerPoint and just lecturing at the audience and really engaging them and having conversations. We had our spring manager symposium yesterday. We had about 100 managers in the room, and there were 4 sessions, and each of them really sparked conversation and interaction between the managers, the other attendees with each other, the sponsors, the speakers, and that was really exciting. We're getting really great feedback from our attendees that they're not just sitting there listening; they're actually able to engage, and so that's been really effective for us this year.
That's great. And Michael, you kind of set me up. That was one of my questions are
I knew it
how
was
are
coming,
you?
Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Of how are you getting your attendees engaged in the session? A question I hear a lot, actually from your peers is, should we do this in person versus virtual? And what is making the person be in the room if you're in person? Why can't this just be, if it's a regular PowerPoint presentation, why am I driving a half an hour to an hour out of my way to come to something in person just to get a lunch and an education? And then I have to make that drive back versus I could have taken this in the car and listened to it, or again, not had that. So, what's really making that difference of being there in person? And I think that comes down to that engagement level and how you're engaging. So, I'd love to hear how others are it putting that interaction in with their in-person events specifically. If you're doing something great virtually, absolutely would love to hear that too. But how are you getting your attendees engaged during the education?
This is Dr. Robert from the Nevada chapter.
Yes.
Here in Nevada, it's rather unique for us because our chapter is divided into two sections, but it is one chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Our chapter executive director travels between northern and southern Nevada, which is approximately 110 square miles, and she does that every month. We offer 4 education classes every month. We offer one class a month for homeowner leaders, and these classes are well developed. They're tried and true, as the saying goes. We constantly update them. We have the professionals in the industry review them to make sure that everything is correct. And they're offered primarily to our homeowner leaders. After they take a certain number of classes, they are given a recognition of DECAL, Dedicated Community Association Leader. That recognition is sought after. It tends to draw some of the homeowner leaders to actually take those classes, and then in the process of taking them, learn a lot that they should know for being the actual governors of an association. We have manager classes also. Oh, by the way, those classes are offered by Zoom. We have manager classes that are also offered by Zoom, and these are given once a month. They cover the topics that are necessary for our managers in the state of Nevada to retain their credentials and their licensing. Not only do we emphasize the getting the credentials from CAI, but our state requires that our managers be licensed. So they have to keep current. They're responsible to take a certain number of classes. We offer those classes, and the classes have to be approved by the ombudsman for the state of Nevada. And each class, of course, is approved and well attended. In addition to that, we also offer classes at our monthly luncheons. The luncheon classes vary, always on topic. The luncheons are always well attended. These are the only in-person classes that we offer, except from classes that we offer at a trade show. We get great attendance. As I say, the topics are pertinent. We've actually had Dawn Bauman, our CEO for CAI Nevada, CAI National. She presented the last presentation at the March luncheon, both in southern and northern Nevada. Well received. But our education classes, I'm trying to make this point, our education classes are ongoing. They're thoroughly researched, well attended, well presented, and that gives us the status of, in the eyes of the Ombudsman Office, of having literally the go-to place for classes for managers, homeowners, as well as business partners. And they're frequent, so the person who wants to take them can go through a plethora of offerings, decide which one they want to take, and take them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think you bring up an important point, and Lisa, I'll get to you in just one second. That if you have an ombudsman, it's very important to build that relationship, whether it's your staff or from an education standpoint. But I feel that's really important to do that. So if you have one, please start building that relationship if you haven't already. They are such an important role within our industry and to have that connection with. And then Dr. Robert also brought up one other thing that I just want to let everyone know in case you don't know. we do, as chapter staff and also our board of trustees members, travel around the country to chapters and present education topics from a variety of industry updates to the state of the industry to burnout and mental health. So if you are looking for a speaker from that level, please reach out to me. I manage that process for that team. So please let me know if it makes sense. Usually a bigger event, it helps pull them, but again, if you're looking for a lunch or a webinar speaker, even, again, we've got some of those resources, both with Dawn, as Dr. Robert mentioned, all the way to our board of trustees or council members with different topic areas. So if you're looking for something, please let us know. Also, your chapter executive directors have access to a speaker bureau list. So these are recommended from other chapters of great speakers. So if you guys do have a great speaker that you would like to recommend for other chapters to use, please reference that to your executive director so they can go ahead and add that speaker into that speaker list. Or if you're looking for someone from a certain topic, please ask them about that because there might be someone. They range from CAI members that will do this complimentary for the industry to people who do charge if you're looking for a keynote speaker and you've got a budget for that. So again, some different ranges, but please keep that in mind as well. All right, now over to you, Lisa. Thanks for being patient with that.
No worries, no worries. Hi everyone. Sorry about my gangsta look. It's spring break down here on the Gulf Coast, and it's just been the wild, wild west for the past few weeks. But so similar to what Dr. Robert was saying, my chapter 2 covers a pretty big territory, and my people don't like to cross bridges. So we have 3 lunches every month, and I attend every single one as the CED. And I love it, but I did put this in the chat. One thing we did last May, again, it is spring break here right now. So in May, we had local law enforcement come as a panel. So we had the sheriff's office, we had fire, we had beach patrol, and anyone else kind of in that realm on a panel. It was probably one of our best attended lunches that we have ever had. We're doing it again this year in June, but the cool thing was they spoke about spring break and the lessons learned. And then, hey, how can you prepare for a very busy summer tourist season? And it was everything from, underage drinking to safety areas in your parking lots. It was incredible. But what was really good, especially for the CAMs that attended, was they had that personal connection and they were able to put faces with names. So when they needed something going forward, they could always kind of reference that and say, hey, I met you at the lunch. And again, since we have the 3 separate ones, we had local law enforcement for each one. And it was great to hear. You would think that they were doing things the same everywhere, but they really weren't. Miramar Beach, Walton County, was doing things differently from Panama City Beach and different from Perdido Key in Pensacola. So it was great. And now it was so well received that they are asking me to come to the lunches. Hey, can we come to your lunch next month? And I'm like, ooh, and I love it, but everyone just attacks them with questions. That has been also one of the most engaging lunches because people are asking, even more than our, free legal advice lunches. So just throwing that out there for one suggestion.
And I think you bring up a really important point, and I think I saw this in the chat too, of making sure you have that time for people to ask those questions and ask the questions that they have. I know a lot of time that question and answer, it's like, oh, well, we'll leave 5 minutes at the end for that. And there's one question that gets to be asked and no one else gets to, or making sure that maybe you have some time after the fact, if you're in person, for them to stay and engage, for people to have that personal stop and connection and question to ask them. So making sure you're giving that space to people as well during your sessions, I think is really important for that engagement piece.
And I forgot
Any,
to add
go
to
ahead.
Dr. Robert mentioned normally our lunches are CEUs. This is an even number, and I apologize if it's like this for every state, but in Florida, the even number years, they have to get their certification done by September 30th. So we're making sure that every lunch, with the exception of that one, is a CEU and very well received. And very random topics. Yesterday, we did an HR for burnout. Next month, we've got insurance. The month after that, hurricanes. So good stuff.
Yeah, and it seems like I'm seeing through some of the pieces with trends that there seems to be a mix of education between what's so and so quote unquote called those soft skills, of burnout, how to communicate, how to deal with difficult people, right? Those are things that aren't specific to our industry or the role that our members have in their regular life. But it's very important to do. And then on the flip side, making sure that you're also providing very role specific education as well. So I love seeing that there's a mix of that taking place throughout the chapters. Anyone else want to share anything unique? Up, Dr. Robert, I see you came off mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add something. Not only do we have the in-person classes, but we do cover the majority of those topics also in our monthly magazine that goes to all members of our chapter. This is important because there are obviously some who cannot get to the meetings, or excuse me, to the presentations, whether they be in person or Zoom, but they need to get that information. So we provide that additionally in the monthly magazine.
That's great. And thank you for referencing that too. I've heard a lot of chapters that they're either using that as a precursor to an education or that post education of how do you bring that education that you're providing in person, whether or through a webinar, to a broader audience, because we know not everyone can attend every event that you have, whether it's again in person or a webinar, but it's still really good information for them to have. So I know, Dr. Robert, you mentioned this, but are any others asking their speakers to write an article or write something that you can repurpose their content and utilize in a different format, whether it's through social media or through your newsletters and magazines? I see a couple head nods. That might be something to think about. And again, how to interact with your other committees and making sure that it's not falling within that silo of something. So how can you do that? And I will say that anytime I have asked a speaker to write something of that educational component for an article, they're usually more than happy to provide that. So that might be something to think about in the future. Blog posts, thank you. Yeah, that's another great one to reutilize that content. All right. Anyone else want to share anything else unique that you feel that you're doing that others might like to hear about?
I would like to. It's maybe not
Yeah,
unique, but I'm here
that's
in
okay.
Denver at the Rocky Mountain chapter,
Great.
and we are struggling getting attendees to come to our regular education sessions. It seems like we get a good amount of people to sign up, and then they just don't show up. And so I've got a bit of a focus group happening right now to reach out to the managers and try and understand, why one would sign up and then maybe not attend. I know that everybody is busy in this role, and sometimes it's easier to say, well, there was a free sign up and I've got things to do today, so I'm not going to show up. But in our last session, we had a great opportunity of a panel from City and County of Denver, City of Aurora, and they were talking about grants and rebates and free money for your associations. And I felt like this was a really good topic to bring people out. And when we started the meeting, I had a panel of like 5 people, and I had one manager on the call. And this seems to be kind of a consistent factor here. It sounds like you guys all have a ton of people show up. What are we doing wrong? We also then attempted to do an in-person meeting or workshop because everyone was like, hey, well, we want to be in person. And the turnout there wasn't great either. So it's like a lot of people have a lot of thoughts about what they want to do, but when it comes down to it actually happening, nobody shows up. And the time that goes into getting the panel there, arranging the schedules and doing all the things, to have one manager on the call, very, very disappointing. And this seems to be kind of our trend. So what are we doing wrong here in Denver?
Well, first, Sabrina, don't feel like you're doing anything wrong because I feel like there's probably multiple people on this call that this is resonating with. But Della, I see you came off mute. Did you want to share anything?
We haven't really dealt with that, but we've talked about it. And you said there was no fee for that?
Correct.
Is that
As a member, it's free.
Right.
As a non-member, it's like $10. It's minimal.
but so what if you charged if they're a no-show?
Well, if they're a member and it's free, I don't know
Yeah.
how I would do
Yeah, I
that,
mean,
I
we kind of
guess.
done that with some like events, the people would
Sure.
say, I'm gonna show, and then if they don't show, we charge. Just because we had to pay for that, but you may look at something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
or maybe just, I don't know, maybe just charge something.
Yeah, we're doing
that-
mostly
that-
Zoom calls to try and
Yeah.
avoid that venue,
Right,
price and nobody coming. And when I say nobody coming at the venue, I'm saying lots of vendor partners coming, but not a lot of managers showing up.
Right. Right. Troy,
And so
I
Zoom has
see.
been our go-to.
Yeah. Troy, I see you came off mute.
We were having the exact same problem, and as suggested, we do not charge our board members or homeowner leaders, and we do not charge our CAMs for coming to events. But if they sign up and do not give us at least a 24-hour cancellation, we do charge them a no-show fee. It has improved significantly. People, they either are canceling or are not, and the no-show fee is not light. It's $30.
Okay.
And they do not have to pay to attend. And we are doing mostly live events, but it really did make a change. We dealt with this for 2-3 years, and the board passed the policy to after a couple of versions, most recently at the end of last year, and it has significantly improved this year. We still struggle with no shows, but usually they get the first no show fee, and they get one warning. So if they register, for example, January, and they didn't show up for a January event, they get a warning letter reminding them of the no-show fee and asking for the courtesy. And if they don't show up again in February, they get sent an invoice. And 90% of the invoices have been paid. It has improved significantly, people attending. So
I'm reading the comments here too, and it sounds like most of you guys do have a charge for these education sessions.
I think a lot charge for in-person, but I think that really does vary on location and region. I know some chapters, they don't charge for homeowner leaders or for, again, that member to come if they're able to get business partners to sponsor it. So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds around pricing for events today. But if that is something that you're concerned about, we do a survey, and we've got a lot of that information, Sabrina, so we can always connect offline if that's something that, or anyone on the call would like to dive into your pricing make sure you're talking with your executive director first, because they might know some of those puzzle pieces about how that fits and what you're able to do or not. Heather, I see you came off mute, and then Diana, I see you did too, so we'll move to you after Heather.
Yeah, thank you. Heather from Central Oregon. I heard her ask specifically about manager attendance. We had a manager roundtable program that we were doing on Zoom, and we were really struggling to get consistent attendance for those events. But as soon as we structured it around hot topics and had guest speakers, so we didn't always do them on a consistent schedule, but as these things were coming up, like the Corporate Transparency Act and Firewise is such a big thing in our area. So we kind of just created these topics around what was really big in the industry in our local area at that time. And we got a lot more attendance coming through. So that was really helpful to get specifically manager engagement.
Yeah. And I think, Sabrina, one thing that you mentioned that I don't want to forget about was that you're reaching out to people to see what they're wanting and looking for. And timing I think is really important as well, of what time of day. I know some chapters have referenced, coffee hour works better than a lunch or an afternoon session, where if you talk to another chapter, the afternoon is their pinnacle spot, or even an evening education for some people. And so really taking a look at maybe even just the timing of things. What else is going on outside of the industry space too, of are there other events, is there a major something happening around you, and so people are going to that, or they're engaging with that instead of with you. St. Patrick's Day was yesterday, it's during the week, but if you held something on Saturday here in Chicago where I'm located, there was no way that you would have anybody attending your event because everywhere was doing something for St. Patrick's Day. So just being conscious of that in your local areas and cultures too. But I want to just acknowledge that I think it's great that you're trying to collect that feedback to find when people are wanting to engage and how. Go ahead, Diana.
Kelly, and Sabrina, that is what I was going to share with you as well. And we noticed in our chapter that sometimes, because we have a broad spread as well, we have 3 counties that range from, like the edge of Boca, which is Broward County, which is big, large, all the way to the Keys so you have Broward, Miami-Dade, and the Keys. So we found that we alternate, our counties for the Hot Topic events, the in-person. And we found that we looked at times, we listened to our managers, and they told us the dates that they have meetings, usually trainings. So we tried to avoid those dates, just like what you guys said and what's happening around. And also we looked at times, because most of the managers and even board members, some board members here, we have young board members here now, like to school. So we looked at all those things. And this year we changed the time so that parents could drop off their children and then attend. And it actually worked out. We had a very high attendance at our Hot Topics breakfast in February. So look at all those things and consider all of those realities for each person, each group member type is what I meant.
Yep. And I think that's great that you bring that up. And I've seen a lot of chapter calendars that actually highlight when spring breaks are happening. If you're in an area and that's something that's big within your culture, is making sure so that you're not putting those events over spring break. That's either when people have their kids home with them or they're taking vacations. So even when you're just looking at your calendar, the other thing is holidays, making sure that you're taking a look at those. We do send out a holiday calendar every year. So again, your chapter executive directors and your chapter presidents have access to that, so that you're not having to do the research with that. So again, if that's not something that you currently have in place as you move into looking at 2027 and building those calendars out, because that's right around the corner. I can't believe we're already middle March. So again, we're going to start looking at next year already. But make sure that you're looking at some of those calendars and taking just a moment to recognize culturally within your chapter, what are some of those things that you might not always think about when you're preparing for these sessions, especially during timing. All right. I have a fun question that I want to ask you. Go ahead, Dr. Robert.
So, I just wanted to add something here. We're talking about CAI chapter and national education, but if we take this to a level just a little bit lower, homeowner education at the community itself, we have gatherings every other month. At those gatherings, we have coffee, a conversation, the whole bit. We sometimes bring in outsiders who want to talk. For example, we just recently had one from the police department about our neighborhood watch program. In addition to that, if we don't have an outside speaker come in, we ask the people who possibly would attend. Actually, the emails go out to the entire homeowner association. We ask them what they would like to hear information about. And then whatever it is, I'll prepare like a 5-minute presentation on whatever it is, like on reserves, for example. We just had one on reserves, the importance of it, why there's so many line items and keeping it funded. It's things like that that help to increase the interest of the homeowners. So you're getting a more active homeowner association. In addition to that, those same homeowners, we always invite to any of our other functions that are going on, whether they be our luncheons, whether they be our classes, whatever it is. Some have taken up on that, others have not. The thing is, it's there. Invite them, let them know what they can get from it. And if they choose to partake in it, they're going to be better for it.
Yeah, and I'm going to even bring that one step further, that chapters, you and your role could be asking, because I know that's always a question that I hear constantly, is how do we get our homeowners better engaged? How do we get them to come out? That maybe it's asking, what do your homeowners need? What is that education? What are you providing to your homeowners that maybe we can give you those resources for? And presenting topics on that they can then take those materials, take those resources, and really go back to their communities and look like the experts, or being able to connect with those experts to bring into their communities as well. So I think that's great. I'm also going to mention this new resource that we have, and sorry, I'm looking at my other screen while I'm trying to find it, but I'll drop it in the chat. We have a new resource for our homeowners to provide, or homeowner leaders and our managers to provide to your homeowners. So it's our Community Association Living Guide that we produced a few years ago, but we turned it into a course. We understand that people learn in different ways, and reading a big pamphlet isn't always helpful. But we also know we want to be able to pass down information to that homeowner level. And so this is a course or that document, but it's completely free to share with your homeowners, to get them a better understanding of what the board is, what their responsibilities are, who a manager is, what their responsibilities are, what's an annual meeting. So even people who have lived within a community for a long time might not have that good understanding. And so we've really built this resource for them, so for our members to use within your community. So I'll drop that link in the chat here so that you guys can see that. We'd love you to go through it, provide us your feedback so we can only continue to make it better, but it is a resource that is developed to share down to your communities. All right, so now on to the fun question that I have for you all. If budget was not an issue, so we don't have to worry about finances at all, what is something that you wish from the education perspective that you could provide to the members within your chapter? I know it's a hard question.
Say it again, Kelly.
If money wasn't an issue, but we're focused on that education aspect, what is something that you would provide to your members? Is it getting a specialty keynote speaker in on a specific topic?
Yeah, we would definitely bring in more outside speakers. Like there are topics, I think, a little more generalized from that we could bring in that aren't just so specifically transactional or operational in the HOA industry that I think would really help our members. But we just can't afford to bring in maybe more than one or two outside speakers a year, or it's for our very expensive executive summit. And then we can bring in like 3 outside speakers for one event that doesn't serve all our members.
Mike, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think same answer. We budget for a keynote speaker for our annual conference and expo and for our executive leadership retreat. And we spend a fair amount of money, but if money were no object, we would bring in even better speakers. So I think that's where we would look at, who we're bringing in and what kind of notoriety they have, how popular they are. I think that would certainly drive attendance.
Valerie, I see you came off mute.
I'm going to echo what they both said, and it would be a named speaker. And I'm just, as an example, at the national conference last year, Your keynote was awesome. I mean, not only was he a singer and people knew his, if I could get a name like that, I mean, and even the year before, you guys, I didn't know him. I forgot his name now, but he was really dynamic. I mean, he just sucked me in. You could tell that's what he did for a living. Um, Definitely, if I had the money, I would get a bigger name.
And we have a great speaker this year, so anyone coming to conference, she is going to be fantastic. I dropped the link in the chat too for you to see that. But so I figured this might be something that would come up, you know, kind of getting that bigger push of a speaker. In all of your areas, there's people who will resonate with the members that way. And sometimes we get scared to make the ask, or sometimes we get nervous that, oh, they're going to be completely out of our budget, or there's no way that we could get that. But do you have maybe a business partner that might be willing to provide a sponsorship to pull in that bigger name because they know their name's going to be linked to it? They can introduce them on stage and they can get them in that space. I even saw someone recently at one of the chapter conferences that he did it complimentary because he had a connection and he really wanted to be in front of the group there. And so he waived his speaker's fees for the chapter. But that wouldn't have happened if they didn't have that conversation. So sometimes shooting for the moon might be available if you make that ask and don't keep yourself locked within that box. So just something to think about if you can tap into that, if that's one of those things that is a wish list. I do know, again, finances sometimes, but you know, it might be willing to ask or communicate with one of your business partners that might have a relationship with a heavy hitter that would help bring in somebody, or might be willing to put a little bit extra forward to help bring someone in at a certain level. All right. I have one more poll I am going to quickly launch. This one is around challenges. So I know we've got a little bit of time left. We talked about one challenge a little bit, but I'm going to launch this one. And I'm really looking for your biggest challenge from delivering programs. What, as a committee, are you really struggling? All right. So it looks like we've got a lot around that and attendance engagement side of things. So I do want to circle back really quickly to something I don't remember who said it at this point, but doing things differently and having those panels for your discussions. So if you could engage and look like that expert, I think it was Dr. Robert when, you know, as the ombudsman, really recognizing the CAI Nevada chapter as being that expert in the field and knowing that they're going to get that level of quality of education and people know I need to be in that space. How many of you feel like your members view you as the top quality education in the space? And you can raise your hand, you can use the emoji. We see a couple raising your hands. If you're not having that feeling that our members are looking at us as the chapter, as the experts, we need to up our level of education in some way. Amy, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying that we have that.
Okay,
I don't know how to do
it. So one thing, and I'm not sure if I'm looking to see all the chapters on here to call out somebody, and I don't think they're on right now. But one thing that they've started doing is having a conversation with their speakers ahead of presenting and making sure that they're not just up there providing a PowerPoint and being a talking head the whole time, that they're engaging in some way, that they're providing discussions at the table, that people are leaving with a takeaway, and they're wanting to come back again because they don't want to miss out and being in the space for that education. And I think that's a really important change that they had. Previously, it was, yep, go ahead. Oh, you're a speaker, you're the expert, go ahead and go do that. But they didn't walk through with the speaker. And I know it's hard with the time commitments that our committees have, and all of you are putting into the work already. But that little piece of, hey, don't forget to provide some type of interaction or engagement similar to how Mike had referenced they did in their last session, might push people just that little bit of looking at you like the experts. Diana, go ahead.
We, in South Florida, we also ask for the speakers at our chapter to provide us the copies of the evaluation that they receive. When I was education chair, my education chair, Jamie's on. She's amazing. She's a PCAM and she's doing a phenomenal job. Thank you, Jamie, for all you're doing. But I wanted to say that we've actually picked up the evals, put them, with CAI as well, and then giving them to the instructor in the past. We've also, so that we can see what benefits and then the feedback that we get. Sometimes at our chapter, we've noticed that the managers and or homeowner leaders will complain if a speaker is talking too much about their personal self or selling their business. Oh, you know who to call, blah, blah, blah. And they're not allowed to in Florida, by the way. That's not allowed. But we find that they do that a lot. And they also want to talk way too much about themselves. And we just can't allow that. And so that's very important to have those conversations. And we also have instructions, which I have to give to Jamie, that tell what to do. And so I created those instructions years ago when I worked for a previous law firm, and I created it for that law firm, and I've just moved it forward to, well, I had it for myself, then for the law firm, and then now for CAI, so that we have instructions that we give out to our speakers so they know what to do, and kind of a nice little guideline. And also to provide us a copy of the successful report, because in Florida, they have to be reported. And then if they give us the successful report, we can save that. So when someone calls our chapter and says, hey, this is a renewal year this year, by the way, it's going to start in June. I took a class with CAI. They don't realize they took it with so-and-so speaker, right, and company. So we then can go back and look at when they did it, contact the presenter and have them report that, or give them a certificate so they can report it. So there's checks and balances that we put in place so that we continue to look, that we're providing that level of excellence with the classes that we give. And I do have to say one more thing. In South Florida, Tri-County area, we have a sister chapter that's very close to us, like 45 minutes or less to get to the end of that chapter. So from our chapter to theirs is 25 minutes, right? So we have a lot of times when our business partners kind of cross. So when we have a lot of communities, and I know we've discussed this before, organizations, that compete, and it's okay. There's plenty of, don't be just illusioned by that or swayed by it. Just continue to go forward. But if you have a chapter as close like we do, we try to not do things on the days that they're doing it. We do look at each other's chapter to do that. We just can't worry about all the other groups that speak, right? That's the only thing. So just continue to move forward with providing that good education and working with your speakers.
Great. Thank you, Diana. Heather, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. I feel like something that happens, at least in our chapter, is a lot of the newer managers are too afraid to engage and ask questions. And then some of the more veteran seasoned managers already know the answers. And so they're not asking the questions. And our topics need to be broad for the newer managers and the more seasoned. Does anybody have kind of standard practices or strategies that help engage the seasoned managers to ask the questions they already know and kind of like support that mentorship with the newer managers?
Feel free to come off mute if you have any recommendations or you've dealt with that or from your experiences? Heather, one thing I've seen a couple of chapters do is they have a polling piece. Now, again, this relates back to your capacity at your events to do things, but it's a QR code that they can go in and submit a question to. And then whoever manages that, they can go ahead at the end and ask those questions. So it is anonymous so that someone's not standing up and asking that in front of their boss and being like, oh, they're going to be mad because I asked this, then I should know what it is. Or even a way to kind of place those questions. So usually those people also have kind of a generic list of questions that would be good for the people in the room to hear. So they've kind of been set up already with some of them. Those are more in place in case something doesn't come in, but that might be something to consider if you have the capacity to have someone in the room to monitor that or willing to be able to do that. That could take that off of their plate. Go ahead, Dr. Robert.
I'm sorry for taking up everybody's time, but obviously I'm very proud of our chapter, and a lot of this is the reason for this. Our success is because of our chapter executive director, Chris Snow. She is so dedicated and she is so knowledgeable at everything she does, just rubs off on everybody. And people want to volunteer. They want to attend different things because they see the enthusiasm that she has, and consequently, they want it too. But I want to emphasize one other thing. Someone had talked about getting in touch with the presenters to make sure that you know what they were going to be saying, and so that everything went very smoothly. Our education committee chair, Richard Salvatore, this is a matter of fact that he does this. He contacts every single speaker, the Zoom speakers. He goes over the courses with them. He makes sure that they follow a time limit. He follows with them as they're going on the PowerPoint when we have it on Zoom. He follows through all of this, and consequently, the classes go very smoothly. We keep getting increased attendance at every class. Some classes have hit 100. I believe in one of the Zoom classes, we actually hit 100 people. But this is all because of the dedication and the background that some of these people do. And that is so important. It's so important because that rubs off on the rest of the members, and consequently, they want to become more involved.
That's great feedback. So thank you. If you're not already doing that, think about maybe how you can put something like that into place for your committees. One thing I'd like to, before we end today, I know we've got a couple minutes left, is just by, again, a show of hands, and I won't call on anybody if you raise your hand virtually this time. But how many of you have ever been to a session that wasn't fun? You didn't enjoy yourself. You didn't have a good time. You didn't want to go back again, right? I know I've attended sessions before and it's like, this was a waste of my time. I'm not going to spend money. And then I see the marketing come in for the next one and I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. So my challenge to all of you is, how do you bring a fun into that event? How do you have people walking away from these education sessions, and some of them are dry, some of them aren't fun, some of them you can't change a person to become a dynamic speaker just by going through their presentation ahead of time. But how can you, as the committee, make sure that if something's happening at your event, that you're able to bring that fun into it? So at least if it is a dry topic or a dry speaker, at the end when people are leaving that session, they know I'm coming back again. That I am not going to miss the next event. When I see the next email marketing message come out, they're going to be happy. They're going to be excited because they left with that good feeling at the end of it. So that's the challenge I'd like to send all of you away with. And we do plan on doing another one of these in the fall. So I'd love to get feedback from all of you in the fall. If you are able to join us, or even if you're not, you can send me a message when it comes out that we're doing this again. Really around, how did you bring that positive, fun aspect into your education over the next few months? And did it have an impact overall? And maybe next year when we do this back in March again next year, we can see if attendance did increase or engagement has increased. But that's my challenge for you. Really bad dad jokes, those are always the best. I agree. So with that, we've just got another minute left. I want to thank you all for all of the hard work that you're doing. You guys are putting in so much time and effort for our industry, and sometimes it's a thankless job. And I just want to say thank you for all of the work that you're putting in. Thank you for coming today, for the chat, for coming off mute, for the conversations. It's been great. If you need anything, please let us know. Please utilize your chapter executive directors. Please utilize your chapter presidents and president-elects, your board members. But if you need anything, we are also here. So thank you. Have a great rest of your day. And I hope to see you guys in the fall when we come back together again. Thanks, everyone.